Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to another tutorial video. Today we're going to be talking about something that is semi-advanced, but don't be worried about that because if you're just beginning, you can do this. I'm going to show you two ways that you can accomplish this. And what we're going to be talking about is controlling all the reverb in your track today, and the way that you can send all your reverbs, or as many as you can, because sometimes routing gets complicated, but as many of your reverbs as you can send them all to the same bus. And the reason this is useful is because it allows you to control and further shape the way all your reverbs fill your mix. And I find this useful because I like to think of the instrumentation of my mix and then the reverb of my mix as two kind of separate elements, even though obviously they should come together and they should sound dynamite that way. When it comes to mixing, it's really helpful to have them separate and to control them separately. And what this is useful for is it's for creating contrast. Contrast in the sense that you want your instrumentation to be playing in the front of your mix and you want your reverb to sit in the back. And if you're like me, you probably may like enjoying no matter how redundant that might be, you probably enjoy using lots of reverb, or there's going to be a situation where you find that you drench one part of your mix in reverb, and then as things start to crescendo and build up, the reverb just gets out of hand, and the typical solution is to like change the send automation. But if you're already pretty much exactly where you need to be with your automation, this is the kind of thing that's going to help you control your reverb, get it to sit better in your mix, create more clarity, fullness, just all those fancy words that people use to describe amazing mixes. So what we're going to be talking about is, as I said earlier, is that you send all your reverbs to a bus. So in my mix, I've got all my reverbs sent to a channel that I call my send mix. And you'll notice I have one that I call my instrument mix, and then I have one for effects mixing, which I barely use. Almost everything just goes to instrument mixing and send mixing. So what the send mix allows us to do is, as I said earlier, it's just our reverb. So I'm going to play the track a little bit that we've got right now. I actually filmed a video on it of me producing it from scratch. It's going to be part of our Building a Song from Scratch series. And it's a bit different, so if it's not your style, just relax. There's going to be some things that you can learn here, and you can apply them in your style too. And everything here can be done with whatever plugins you have available, so don't worry about that either. All right, so we're just going to play just a part of the track where it's crescendoing at the end here. And then you can hear how much kind of like reverb there is, how much stereo spread's going on. Okay, so what is the benefit of using a send where you can do this? So obviously that send just has all our reverb on it. You just hear the reverb. Well, the first benefit of it is that you can just hear your reverb by itself. And that will allow you to hear what parts of your reverb frequency spectrum are just getting clusterfucked. You can figure out what sucks, and if you want to, you can just pull up an EQ, and you can EQ different parts of your reverb separately. You can like dip out here. A range that tends to get clusterfucked pretty easily is between about 800 to 4 kilohertz. You can do it there. You can boost here if you want more, which will actually show that right now. We're going to play everything and we'll just kind of boost the top end. You'll notice how it actually can add more stereo width to your mix, because this is a region from about 5K to 20K that you can typically boost with reverb, and it won't mess up your mix if you cleaned your mix up to begin with. So we're going to demo that. and then we'll jump into the multi-band compression portion, which I forgot to mention that's what we're going to be focusing on because it's a little more effective than EQing. But we're going to start with EQing because that's the basic. It's the basic version. And if you can't get the EQing down, then honestly, if I could only live with one, I would choose the EQing because the EQing has certain benefits when it comes to precision engineering. Multiband compressing or dynamic EQing is a little bit more of a broad kind of effect. So we're just going to add some stereo width by just boosting this top end over here. And what we can do is we can put this into side mode so that we can actually do that more precisely. So we're just going to be boosting the sideband. And I'm getting really excited here. Okay, high shelf, there we go. All right, so we're just going to leave that and we'll just mess with the boost as everything plays. Cool. So you can go back and you can A/B that so that you can hear the difference between having a shelf that's adding top end. If you don't have a sideband, you can just, have the whole stereo band. That's going to be more dramatic, and that's fine as well. So we'll listen to that right now as well. So you can hear how it's just adding top end. So that's really the benefit of an EQ. As you're aware, you can use EQs post reverb, which is something I would strongly suggest because it helps you further control your mix. And if you're doing dense mixes, having a reverb or a post filter reverb is a very good thing to practice. So we're going to move on to kind of the more advanced version of this, which is using a multi-band compressor to control your frequency ranges. Now, the exact purpose of doing this is to prevent any one band of our frequencies. So, for example, here we have from 111 hertz to 1.25 kilohertz, and then from 1.25 kilohertz to 6.71 kilohertz. The other bands we're not using. And we'll disable those so that you're aware of that. And what we're doing is we're using this multiband compressor as what is frequently called a dynamic EQ. And what that means is that when either one of these frequency ranges gets too loud based on the threshold setting that I've set here, the multiband compressor is going to make it quieter. So what it's doing is when there's too much energy in any one of these given frequency ranges, the compressor prevents it from getting too energetic, getting too loud, getting too dense. So what it does is it prevents our reverbs from filling up the mix too much, which is something that can become a problem when you have filter automation effects like we have on our kind of chord here. That's a problem that people run into, is like when you're opening a kind of prog chord, whatever you want to call it, when you're opening it up, the reverb, it starts getting a lot more energy going into it because your frequencies are opening up and whatnot. And the reverb can swamp your mix, and that's only a problem if you have a bunch of other instrumentation going on. So this particular technique is so useful for effects where you're opening up a filter. When you're opening up a filter on something that's like plucking and you want it to become more of a sustained note, and let more of those frequencies through, that's really one of the best uses for a multiband compressor, bar none. Like if there was only one use that I had to would have to limit myself to, that would be it, to control the expansion of frequency ranges from getting too energetic, getting too loud. These are all synonyms, by the way. From just getting too much and just holding it down, clamping it down so that my main instruments, the dry portions of them, can be in the front. So that's pretty much how I use multiband compression. If you're curious about the... One second. If you're curious about the kind of like attack and release to use, you can use any multiband compressor for this. You can use your default, whatever you've got in your DAW. If you've got Ableton, you can use the multiband thing. The idea here is to use attacks that are not too fast. If your attack is too fast, it could cause your reverb to pump when the compressor acts, and you want your release to be slow as well. So the ranges that I typically aim for with attack for reverb, kind of controlling the energy of a reverb, is basically around 30 milliseconds, and the release I have around typically 50 to 70 milliseconds, just so that all that compression is happening slowly. Again, this is the advanced part of the tutorial because compression is one of those nebulous things, but if I had to say this another way so that it's easier to understand, because compression is an automatic volume fader, it automatically adjusts the volume of any kind of sound going into it. A multiband compressor is just four, in this case, 4 different automatic volume faders that are focused on 4 different frequency ranges. And so this automatic volume fader, if we play the mix in a moment, which we're going to do, you'll notice it's just shaving off half a dB of volume. It's very subtle. This is like a very kind of subtle, just creating more space in your mix. This one I think is doing 1 dB. So we're going to play the mix and you can just watch, how the compressor is working, and notice it use like a 2-to-1 ratio. I would just stick with that, or a 1-to-5. I wouldn't go any higher than that because it's a reverb and it will sound unnatural if you use a high ratio. So I know I'm like drowning you guys in information here, but like I said, it's kind of an advanced tutorial. But you can always go back and replay it, and if you have a notepad, I keep one in my studio. Whenever I discover something that's really valuable, I just write it down, because why would I want to forget something? Your brain forgets very easily if it's not necessary to your survival. So we're going to play everything here. Just notice the way the multiband compressor is just bringing that volume down very gently. And so what we'll do now is we're going to just solo the reverbs by themselves so you can hear the compressor acting on them. It's going to be really subtle. If you don't hear it at first, just continue playing back through it until you notice a difference. It's going to be just a kind of reduction in the density. So just listen to it a few times if you don't catch it the first, and you'll definitely get it. So we're just going to A/B this multiband compressor now so you can hear the difference. That, even for me, that was a bit difficult. So that indicates to me that because I know how I mix, I configured this multiband compressor while everything was playing. And what made it difficult to tell was because Ozone has a bunch of delay that it adds in. So when you turn it on and off, it does weird things with the sound that I don't know what they are. Anyway, so we're just going to play this a few last times, and then we'll A-B this isotope ozone, and see if you can't catch a difference in clarity. So we'll give us 16 bars. So, like I said, it's pretty subtle. The effect that I'm hearing, which was the desired effect that I was after, is that it makes our instrumentation sound drier and more forward with relation to the reverb of our mix, which is creating the space, and I want that reverb to be in the back. I don't want the reverb coming up front, which I know sounds kind of weird, but reverb can actually come up front, especially when there's a lot of send volume going into it. So hopefully that was helpful. If you guys have any questions or comments, you know where to leave them, and let me know what you think of this. If you have any you know, advanced questions, obviously, you know, I'm down to answer those. Anyway, so we'll just get on to the next one here. We're going to make a few more tutorials, and see you guys around.